Hey, good morning. Welcome to American Reversion. I'm Steve Smith. Well, I got up this morning. I want to talk about the collapse of our culture, of our country. Got up this morning, and one of the first things that hit me was a shooting. Whether it falls into the mass shooting, active shooter, all these things, this is one of those that can be it's fluid, shall we put it that way. By the way, I just put up something. I'll get back to that in a minute. I just put up a video on the Patreon side. Join us on Patreon if you would. It's a great way if you'd like to support the channel. We appreciate that. But you also get additional information. You get additional stuff that I put up, and you can do that. I always put the link down here. It's in the information drop down, but I also will pin it. I started pinning it as a comment so that you can find the links, how to join Patreon, how to buy my books, everything like that. How to get autographed copies, all that kind of stuff. So I just put something up by Grady Judd, Sheriff of Polk County, Florida, who's a straight shooter. And it was about an active shooter situation or a barricaded subject situation. He came right out as he should have and gave information to the media. And he let them know exactly what had happened. And one of the things that he said was, "We shot him a lot." So, if you want to see that, it's on the Patreon side. And he lays it out. I talked about something that some of my own experiences in that over on integrative preparedness, but I'm not going to do that here, because what I wanted to talk about here is something different. And it was when I got up this morning, I checked the news, and I saw that in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, there had been a shooting, whether it was active shooter, mass shooting, there are specific definitions for each of these that one will go into another, and that's not what's important here. But there was a big shooting in an entertainment district. I've heard either 14 or 15 people were shot, 2 dead, the rest of them injured. There's no details on it yet. Surprise, surprise. And it's an indication of what's happening in our world. And I know that some of you will say, well, this has been happening for a long time. Well, long time is relative. It has been happening for a while. This kind of stuff did not used to happen, and that's what I want to talk about. That's my point here. When I was talking about, and I put it up as a mass shooting, where was the last one that happened? I forget. Anyway, it was one. It might have been St. Louis. When I put that up, one of our viewers and commenters, and a very valued one, by the way, she said, well, and this happened in the hood. It was a rolling gun battle shooting, and we haven't heard any more about that since then. Have you noticed that we haven't heard a lot of follow-up on all of these active shooters, mass shootings? Have you noticed that? Well, of course, that's because every day there's another one, right? But we haven't heard a lot of follow-up. You remember that Columbine was in the news forever, and Sandy Hook was in the news forever, and whatever that Stoneman Douglas was in the news forever? These things aren't in the news forever. Why do you think that is? Anyway, so I'm talking about this one, and our commenter says, well, I lost interest when you said it was in the hood because it's just a gunfight. And let me say on this, because it's important, this particular commenter, former military, extremely intelligent person, is an African American female. Now, I said that to be politically correct. I don't usually use that term, African American. I usually say black, or I say white, because I don't say European American and all that kind of stuff. Okay? and neither do my black friends. But she is a black female, a military veteran, and she said this is something to the effect. I won't quote it exactly. So you know, if you're watching, you know it was you, and feel free to come on here and correct anything that I said. But it was something to the effect, well, I lost interest because this is just this isn't an active shooter, a mass shooter, whatever like that. It's just what happens in the cities, and something to the effect that blacks need to deal with this. You know, it's why a lot of blacks move out of, you know, those inner city areas and get into an area that's safer for them and their kids. And certainly, you know, that's true. But we still have this bubbling cauldron of this crap in the cities. So why? Why do we have it? When I was on, back in the 70s and 80s, there were shootings. Nothing like this. Nothing like this. And you know what? There were plenty of guns. And for those people who say, well, there's a lot more guns now than, no, there may be. You know, if you really got down to talking, you know, counting all of the guns, but there were plenty of guns. Plenty of guns. Everywhere. Plenty of guns in the city, plenty of guns in the country, plenty of guns in the suburbs. There were guns. So that's not the difference. The difference is the culture. Now, many of you say, well, that's nothing new, Steve. Why are you talking about this? Well, simply because there's something that I want to say about it. And I want to say that this is happening because we've allowed it, not we. Okay. This is happening because the country as a whole, most people being weak and stupid, have allowed these things to occur over the years. We've given up. If you heard me read the 45 goals of the American Communist Party, we find many of it in there. They've taken over the schools, they've taken over many of the churches, they've taken over the governments, and as a result, they've been able to, little by little, tweak and change the fundamental standards, mores, and expectations of society so as to celebrate violence, so as to minimize stigma against aberrant behavior, and desensitize most people to how different and how horribly different things are today compared to what they were 40 years ago, 40, 50 years ago. Now, the government has been complicit in this. The school systems have been complicit in this. Many of the churches have been complicit in this. The families have gone along because to be quite honest, the family structure changed. We do not have parents, to the extent that we used to, standing up for what's right and against what's wrong. People have assumed the attitude of going along to getting along, of not being judgmental, of who am I to say, of, you know, except that they will always attack those of people who they consider to be judgmental, which means people who are standing for something, right? So we can talk for a long time about how this happened, and you know, you can say, well, it doesn't matter how it happened, or you can say, well, it does matter, you know, how it happened so that we know, you know, how to fix it. Well, I get both of those arguments, but here's what I want to say. Let me wet my whistle before I say it. that our attitude concerning things that happen in the city every night, Chicago, Baltimore, Philly, St. Louis, New York, Washington, D.C., L.A., Atlanta, Kansas City, we have to be as outraged at that as we are of these mass shootings like Uvalde and Buffalo and guys, I've lost track now, all of the others. We cannot accept this as just another weekend in Chicago. And how do we do that? Because we can't go out and do anything about it, right? We can't physically go out and stop this stuff. Nor can we, who don't live in Chicago, have any effect on the political idiocy in Chicago that allows this in Chicago. And the same thing for all of the other cities. So what can we do? And what should we do? And what must we do? What we can, should, and must do is stop accepting this as just another inner city situation. We have to, in my opinion, and while I respect our commenter, I disagree with her, just as she disagreed with me, and we all have that right. I disagree that this is just a problem in the black community, in the city community, and whatever like that. It is a societal problem. It is a problem, a cultural problem, a problem of cultural collapse. It's a problem that affects everyone. What's going on in Chicago and all the other major cities is affecting you in Timbuktu out in the middle of the sticks, because it's affecting the world that surrounds you and it's making it a more dangerous place. So if we can't do something ourselves physically, and if we can't do anything with our vote in these other places, we can in our own locations, and we should. What we can do is stop just letting it go and passing it off like, well, that's just the city, that's just them, that's just another group. We have to stop thinking about that way. We have to realize this is an American problem. The problem isn't the guns. The guns are not an American problem. The failure of the system, the failure of the government, the failure of the families, the failure of the churches, the collapse of the culture is the American problem. And to the extent that we can, each of us who sees it and doesn't go along with it has to stand up in all of our conversations with other people. And if you can take it beyond that, hey, start your own YouTube channel. Let me know if you want to talk about this stuff. Let me know, and I'll tell everybody to go to your channel. We need more people standing up and saying this is wrong, this is idiocy, and this is why. This is why it's happened. Because we've, as a society, have allowed it. And then we've enabled it. And then we've celebrated it. So what's happened in Uvalde and Buffalo and like I say, I'm not even remembering all these other places, is no worse than what's happening to innocent people every night in every city in our country. And if we think that it is, we're not engaged in the solution. Now you might say, well, there's no solving it. I don't know if there is or not, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't stand up against it, right? And that you shouldn't be vocal about it, because your opinion can have an effect as you talk to people. Most people don't want to think about this thing. If you're able to make them think about it, at least it's a step in the right direction, and we have to take those steps in the right direction. If we're not taking the steps in the right direction, we're either headed in the wrong direction and are going in no direction, which is the wrong direction when you have a problem. So tonight there will be dozens or hundreds of more people slaughtered, many of them innocent. This isn't just gang warfare. This isn't just people shooting each other in the same situation. These are kids being killed. These are innocent people being killed. These are Americans being killed. And while we may not be able to solve the problem ourselves, we have to be willing to be a part of a group who is becoming more and more vocal to bring this reality out into the into the reality of other people. Does that make sense? That's what I think anyway. Anyway, I'll let you go. I will look forward to hearing your comments on this, because we can try to hide from the world all we want, but we're not going to. And whether or not we are able to turn this country around doesn't abdicate us of the responsibility to stand for what's right and stand against what's wrong to the best of our ability, right? We've all got a mouth. We've all got a voice, and we need to use them.